Returning from South America in 1681, the Italian vessel Scopritore, under Captain Giovanni d'Arcole, was blown off course rounding Cape Horn. The ship barely survived the ordeal but eventually found safe harbor at the previously undiscovered South Atlantic island we now know as South Georgia. The ship spent 3 weeks in harbor there as repairs were made. The return journey had been fraught with difficulties, resulting in the death of 2 men, the loss of valuable cargo, and now, severe damage to the ship. A rumor began circulating among the crew that the cause of their misfortune was a cache of relics that Captain d'Arcole had plundered from the Incan sites of Peru. The claim was that these relics, which the captain kept safely in his chambers, were cursed. Captain d'Arcole, presumably informed of the rumor by one of his officers, gathered the crew and strongly forbid any further mention of such mysticism, making an example of one seaman by way of a hearty lashing. Following this grisly incident, the ship's 4 scientists decided to venture into the island's interior. They hoped not only to escape the tense climate of the ship for a few days, but also to investigate the nature of their strange surroundings. This would prove a most fateful decision. In the days following the scientists' departure, the situation aboard the ship worsened. With their nerves fried and their spirits low, the superstitious crew was further aggravated by the desolate, eerie nature of the island. The fog played tricks with their eyes. The sounds of demons emanated from the island's interior. They decided that the island itself was also cursed and no place to linger. Knowing that the captain would never willfully surrender his treasure or his ship, a mutiny was organized. Helpless against the mad momentum of superstition, the captain and his officers were slaughtered, and the Incan relics thrown into the sea. As the mutiny was taking control of the ship, the 4 scientists were undergoing their own ordeal. The interior of the island was much more rugged and hostile than they had imagined. They found the going very hard, and while they lacked no spirit, they soon discovered their survival skills to be less than adequate. They were lost and desperate to get back to camp. When a storm hit, they made the foolish decision to march through it. By the time they found shelter in an icy cave, the damage had been done. The sad moment was simply and poetically captured by one of the men. "We 4 fought hard against the storm to be free. In a cave made of ice we find ourselves 3. In haste and without a fully mended ship, the mutinous crew departed, abandoning the 4 men who had ventured into the island's interior some days earlier. In a strange and pointless gesture, a small store of food and supplies, barely enough to last a week, was left behind in case there were any survivors. The Scopritore was never seen again. The next day the weather was better, but a thick fog loomed. Another man was lost down a chasm. 2 days later, with the supply of food at an end, the 2 remaining men finally spotted a familiar peak. With a sudden burst of energy, they clambered to the top. Through the fog, they could see the traces of the harbor. In joy, they embraced and slid down the steep slopes, making their way to the camp. They could barely see their hands before their faces. With arms outstretched, they moved across the beach, proclaiming their arrival. No response. Desperately, they grasped through the thick fog. Somehow they had ended up at the wrong harbor. What a cruel fate. Suddenly, one of the men tripped over something and quickly realized that the situation was even worse than they had feared. It was Captain d'Arcole. His throat was slit wide open, his skin blue, his open eyes a mirror of the terror that was his final moment. As the fog began to lift, their worst fears were confirmed. They were in the right harbor, but the Scopritore was nowhere to be found. The men lay motionless on the beach alongside their murdered mates, utterly devastated. Without hope, one let his life slip away as the sun burned off the last of the fog. And so there remained but a sole survivor of the vessel Scopritore. His name was Giuseppe Cognami. Please return for the second installment of this series, Giuseppe Cognomi, the father of LINIAN scholarship, by Lyman and Marie. Available August 3, 2009.